So we'll talk about it on this page. All right, so portamento, common device in the Renaissance that resembles, it's sort of like an anticipation, all right? So do you remember an anticipation sort of anticipates the chord resolving, whereas a suspension lengthens out the chord resolution, right? It hangs out. So an anticipation or a portamento is the friend that shows up to the party, your 8 o'clock party at 7. Whereas the suspension is the friend that shows up to the party and won't leave until 4 in the morning after everyone else has gone to bed and all you want to do is clean up and crawl into bed. So that's the difference, okay? And of course the party is the chord. So in portamento, you'll see that the portamento figure consists of 3 notes, often a dotted half note or a half note tied to a quarter note, which is still the same, it's 3 beats, and a half note or quarter note. Okay? So it's going to be a quarter note, half, and then a half note or quarter note. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2. Ba, 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 like that. Yeah, so you see it does end up resolving itself, right? So you've got your consonant here, and then the portamento figure, dissonant figure, and then it resolves and reaffirms it. Okay, that's all portamento is. Also, the nota cambiata is another sort of specific to the late Renaissance thing. So, and we'll get into changing tones, don't worry about that, you guys don't know what it is yet. So nota cambiata is a 4-note melodic figure. The second note of the 4 is the nota cambiata itself. I think I can play this for you guys. Oh, I could play the portamento too. Hopefully this is a tune. Wow, it's real bad. Okay, so this is the regular piano, and I apologize. But here's the portamento figure. So you've got right? Or it's actually all right? Whereas the nota cambiata is going to sound like this. You hear this all the time. So it resolves. Basically, what happens in this cambiata figure is that this is almost a passing tone, except that it's skipping down, right? So they're breaking the rules a little bit and jumbling up this passing tone figure. Or it's similar to an appoggiatura, right? Or an escape tone, those figures, all right? So this is just the Renaissance version of something like an appoggiatura or an escape tone, okay? So it's called nota cambiata. But just note that the first and third notes are always consonant with a low sounding tone, and the second and fourth may or may not be dissonant, okay? So it's just like a 4-note little melodic figure. You'll basically always see it in this combination though. Okay. Next one. So now we're dealing with dissonance types in 3 or more voices, okay? And this is really going to apply to you guys, because this is what you're going to be doing in your homework. So we've got suspensions here, polyphony, 3 or more voices. So these are specific kind of suspensions. So you can have a 9-8, also conversely it's a 2-1, right? Because that's the equivalent of each other. A 4-3 suspension, a 7-6, and a 2-3. And that specifically refers to the distance between these, right? So in this case, we've got a suspension here. This is our 9-8 suspension. Bam. Just like that. Okay? Here's another suspension, 4-3. Because of this guy. All right? this is not a suspension right here, because this is between these two, right? So yeah, that's how suspensions work. And it's just finding them within the cracks of all three parts, okay? The 6/5 figure, occasionally one voice will sing a fifth above the lowest sounding tone. So here's our lowest sounding tone, right here, okay? So it's a fifth above and a third above, all right? So this A to C and F to C. So there's your F, that's a 5, and then the A will be a third, and guess what? That's just a chord. So that's the 6/5, all right? And then the other tone is going to end up singing a sixth. So here we go. This is a good example of this right here. Okay. So right here we've got a 6. In between here and here, this C is still in play, right? We have a 6. In between the A and the D, it's a 6th. Between the A and the C, which is still in play, that should be a 3rd actually. I don't know why they say that's a 6th. But here we've got our 6, right, between these two, and then this one will resolve to a 5. Does that make sense? And this guy is a 3. So between here and here, we've got a 5, and here, it's a 3. That's basically how a 6/5 figure works. That makes no sense, does it? All right, so here's the deal. This one's still in play, right? I don't know why they labeled this as a 5. It should be a 3rd. But between this this F. Oh, that's why. It's an F. Haha. It's treble clef. All right, so between this F and this D, we've got a 6th. And between this F and this C, we've got a 5th. Okay? So it's a 5th and a 6th. And then when it resolves, right, we get a 3rd and a 5th. So that's what the 6/5 figure is, all right? But the resolution is always going to be a 5 and a 3. So you're going to start out with a 6 and a 5 in each part, and then it's going to end up 5 and 3. Cool? Just remember the 5th is going to resolve downward as a suspension, all right? So this 5th, because this is moving up and this moves down, that's the resolution right there, okay? And this 5th, this would be considered a suspension right here, because you've got this hanging out, and then it becomes part of the chord, okay? And the lowest sounding voice is moving upward, and this guy hangs on, right? So it goes from 6 to 5. So that's all that is. Also, in some cases, a perfect fourth can be considered a consonant. So just be aware of that. So the fourth is normally considered to be dissonance, but at cadence points, a figure similar to the cadential 6/4 chord in tonal music sometimes occurs. So second, right? Second inversion, 6/4 chord. So the fourth in this case is considered to be consonant. All right, so this is the example of that. So you've got between the lowest note and this note, right? Between your A and your F, you've got a 6th. Between your A and your D, you've got a 4th. 6/4 chord. All right, and it's going to sound like a second inversion chord. And in that one instance, it's considered okay. All right? Okay, so when it comes to melodic lines in 16th century choral music, they do have the following characteristics. Melodic movement primarily stepwise, okay? So keep it stepwise. This is a general rule for melody, all right? And it's the same thing that we did in counterpoint. Although skips occur, the following intervals are avoided, obviously. So you want to avoid ascending major sixths, all descending sixths, all sevenths, all diminished and augmented intervals, and skips greater than an octave. Why? Because they're hard to sing. And, you know, composers back then didn't always have the guarantee of the most skilled choir. And, you know, if it's hard to sing, it's probably going to be a pretty terrible performance or representation of their work. So, again, usually avoided because it's probably not going to turn out well. Again, triads are sometimes outlined in the melody. So this is a new thing. We would generally, prior to this, avoid triads and outlines of triads, but in late Renaissance music, something called the English third became all the rage, which meant adding a third to a perfect fifth, right? So a major chord or a minor chord. So now they were all over the place. So triads, sometimes outlined in the melody. So you can throw in an arpeggio or two. Two or more successive skips in the same direction are A-OK. They're rare, but they're okay. All right? Which used to be verboten. A skip greater than a third usually is preceded and followed by an interval that is in the opposite direction. All right? So if you skip up a ways, you're going to come back down. You're not going to keep going up because you're going to run out of room in your vocal range. So a skip greater than a third is preceded and followed by an interval that is opposite the direction to the skip, and most often stepwise, all right? So it's going to be like a step down. So you can see here, we've got stepwise, stepwise, skipping up a fourth, and then we go stepwise down, okay? And then finally, melodic sequence are infrequent at this point, okay? So when we get to the next section, 17th century counterpoint, it becomes like huge and super important. But right now, this isn't so common, okay? So generally, you're going to be dealing with quadruple meter and triple meter. We're only going to deal with quadruple meter. So, and we've got the following possible lengths of note. So a breve is just that weird square double half note that you guys see, and you're always asking what it is. You can have a half note, a whole note. I don't know why they're out of order. You can have a dotted half note. Eighth notes are sparing. Dotted whole notes, quarter notes. So everything up to eighth notes. And no dotted eighth notes, no quarter notes, all right? Everything else is okay.